Modern dating is like a game where no one knows the rules, everyone is playing different sports, and somehow all of you are losing. Welcome to the absolute shit show that is modern dating, where the rules are unclear, the red flags are abundant, and situationships are no longer the exception, they're the rule.
Genuinely shocks me every single time somebody says something like, oh yeah, me and my situationship of like 6 months. Months?
I was good enough to sleep with, I was good enough to hang out with, but I wasn't good enough to be in a relationship with.
The rise of situationships. A situation is defined by the fact that it's not defined, which is both the problem and the point. By definition, it's a romantic or sexual relationship that is not considered to be formal or established. So basically you're getting all of the intimacy, probably all of the emotional confusion, but none of the clarity or commitment. It's like a relationship starter pack, some assembly required, no instructions included. Let's be honest, dating in 2025 is not just hard, it's an absolute clown show. And not the fun kind with popcorn, it's the kind where like the car explodes, no one admits to driving, and you're left holding their emotional support water bottle wondering how this became your problem. You've got people in 7-year relationships still waiting for their partner to propose, and others who have been in a talking stage for 2 years but won't admit that they're dating. According to a survey by Plenty of Fish, 80% of millennials have been ghosted. That's 4 out of 5 people who just vanished like accountability at a manosphere convention. We are navigating dating apps that are designed like pokies machines, DMs that feel like landmines from people who should probably have court-ordered therapy, and attention spans that reset every 15 seconds. And let's be honest, part of the chaos is coming from the ideological divide between genders at the moment. The gap between men and women right now is not just wide, it is a full-blown canyon. It is the Mariana Trench of the dating world, impossibly deep, dark, and full of things that you wouldn't even admit to the group chat. We are drowning in lukewarm connections, people ghosting you just to come back a week later announcing their 1-year anniversary with their partner. If I had $1 for every time I've heard that story, I'd probably have a few dollars, but there's far too many. And not just that, but we've got situationships that last longer than an average rental lease, but with 0 commitment and 10 times the amount of emotional damage. And part of the reason why dating feels like such a mess is that men and women are not even remotely on the same page ideologically. According to a 2024 study, 58% of Gen Z women identify as liberal compared to just 37% of Gen Z men. Meanwhile, Gen Z men are twice as likely to identify as conservative. I would be remiss if I didn't point out the most glaring and obvious issue that we have with dating in 2025, and that's obviously the gender wars, the gender divide that we're currently living through. And to be clear, this mostly applies to heterosexual relationships because queer relationships aren't really affected as much by these dynamics. Queer relationships generally aren't built on like gender scripts, gender roles, but queer relationships do have other issues such as having to co-parent a rescue cat that they got together after 3 dates, or having 16 of the same exes. So you win some, you lose some. With that in mind, on one side you have women who were raised by grandmothers who were basically chained at the ankle, who endured lifetimes of oppression, stayed in marriages they couldn't leave, and sacrificed their autonomy because society gave them no other option. These grandmothers who often pulled their granddaughters aside and told us, always make your own money, get an education, never rely on a man financially. And on the other side, you've got men being radicalized by the manosphere online, by people that prey on their loneliness and insecurities. They're taught that emotional vulnerability is weakness. They're unsure of their place in the world now that women can and do provide for themselves, and they've been taught from birth that they're entitled to women, and that traditional values means power and control, not partnership. And a lot of it boils down to the simple fact that a lot of men don't know how to handle rejection in a world where women are no longer trapped. Women no longer have to choose a man for survival and settle for a man who might just suck ass, honestly, in the same way that previous generations had to. Illusion of control that their grandfathers had without realizing or caring that this level of control was built on silence, fear, and abuse. It wasn't until 1974 that women in the US could get their own credit cards without their husband's permission. Let that sink in. 1974. That's not ancient history, that's 1 generation ago. Before that, banks could legally deny a woman a credit card just because she wasn't married, or because her husband didn't co-sign. It didn't matter if she worked, owned property, paid her bills on time. If she didn't have a man attached to her, she was considered a financial risk. And this wasn't some fringe policy, this was standard practice. Women were seen as dependents, not individuals. The entire financial system was built on the assumption that men controlled the finances and therefore all of the choices. So when grandmothers quietly told their granddaughters never to rely on a man, it wasn't just financial advice, it was survival wisdom. They lived through a time where dependence wasn't optional, it was completely enforced. And when you think about it, the patriarchy is unnatural by definition, because anything that actually belonged to the natural order wouldn't need centuries of violence, violence, unfair laws, the removal of rights, and stolen autonomy to survive. If you have to cage, silence, and brutalize half of the population to keep your system standing, that system was never natural. Marriage benefits men more than women, and stats back that up. Married men live longer, they have a 46% lower rate of death compared to unmarried men, even after accounting for various health risk factors. They are physically and mentally healthier than single men, and they report higher levels of happiness. Meanwhile, married women, it's kind of the opposite. They're far more likely to die younger, and studies show that husbands are far more likely to leave when their wives get seriously ill than the other way around. And the kicker, the happiest demographic of women, according to research, is single childless women. So yeah, it's not exactly shocking that people are now scared of commitment, especially now that old gender roles don't really work anymore now that women have rights and autonomy, but no one's really agreed on what's supposed to replace them. And we're sort of stuck in the growing pains of a system that is collapsing without having a new one to step into yet. And before you post that angry comment, yes, traditional gender roles and relationship dynamics work for some people. Some people love it, and I love that for them, but it is not up for debate that droves of women, when they finally had the choice to abandon those highly enforced roles and dynamics, ran for the fucking hills and have not looked back. Make of that what you will. And unlike your last situationship that just quietly fizzled out, don't you just love when something comes back better? Well, this July, guess who's back? Raycon, also the sponsor of this video. Raycon's fan favorite, the Everyday Earbuds Classic model, now packing active noise cancellation. Raycon has kindly sponsored this video and also saved me on a flight that I was on last week, because I was using these to watch movies during the flight and I could not hear the plane. You've been on a plane, we've all been on a plane. They are very noisy. The engine, the people, the ambient noise, the talking, I couldn't hear anything other than my movies. Could not hear the plane. For that reason alone, I am now loyal to Raycon. I was testing these out and I absolutely love them. But outside of that, they also offer 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery, and the audio quality is amazing. Reliable earbud button functions. For example, you just hold down the right button for 3 seconds to turn on active noise cancellation. You couldn't hear that, but I could. Or awareness mode. I actually have to take these out because I can't hear and I'm probably yelling. Awareness mode is awesome if you still want to be able to hear some of your surroundings. Like if, for example, I had that on when I was walking through the airport because I still wanted to know what was happening around me, because the active noise cancellation does cancel out just about everything. So that's really good if you're in a busy area, if you're out in public and you still want to be kind of lucid of what's happening around you. These earbuds are also so comfortable. I forget that I have them in half the time. If I'm researching for a video and I have these in and I've got active noise cancellation on, I don't know why. I don't know what the science is behind it, but it allows me to focus so much better. It's like it actually cancels out the rest of the world. I'm obsessed with these. Plus you can get 20% off and free shipping with the Everyday Earbuds Classic using my link below, or head to buyraycon.com/Brianne. Could not recommend these enough, and thanks so much to Raycon for sponsoring this video. A big contributor to the state of modern dating, I think, is the illusion of choice. 50 years ago, you probably had like 5 really hot people in your town, if you're lucky. You knew all of them. 2 of them were your cousins. Now TikTok serves you a feed of people who look like they were genetically engineered to make you question your entire romantic history every single day. Faces so symmetrical you forgot what real people look like, or that flaws are normal. We are overwhelmed with options, and studies show that when humans are given too many options, we tend to choose nothing. In a famous 2000 study, shoppers offered 24 jam flavors were 10 times less likely to buy any than those that were just offered 6. It's called choice overload, and it can to some degree explain what's happening in modern dating, because here's the issue. It's not even real choice. You don't actually have all of these options. They are in front of you, but they are not yours to take. Dating apps and social media bombard us with a never-ending carousel of hot, highly filtered people. So while it might feel like you have access to an unlimited pool of potential hot strangers, what you're actually getting is the illusion of abundance and like the grass is greener on the other side effect. Because in real life, most of us aren't surrounded by thousands of 10 out of 10s every single day. You are not bumping into that Croatian model or that moody guy in a linen shirt playing guitar in a sun-drenched loft, but your brain doesn't know that. Your brain has no idea. It thinks those people are part of your dating pool now. So when a real imperfect person stands in front of you, one with flaws, one with quirks, one who exists as a human being and not just part of a grid on Instagram that you can project your desires onto, your brain hesitates and you start to wonder if you're settling or if there's something something better out there, just because we've all been kind of conditioned to think that something better is one scroll away. So it's not even that we're overloaded with options, it's that half of those options aren't real. Of course, it's not just the illusion of choice overload, we're becoming more disconnected in general. In a world where we're constantly plugged in but rarely present, it's easier than ever to avoid intimacy, to ghost instead of confront, and to scroll instead of committing. But the more isolated we become, the harder it is to build anything real. And for a lot of people, it's just easier to default to solitude. Situationships have quietly become the new default. Not quite dating, not quite nothing, but somehow everything in between, depending on who you talk to. Tinder's 2022 report showed a 49% increase in people using the word situationship in their bios. Kind of a sign of the times and not a good one. And Bumble's 2024 study found that only 23% of women are actively seeking marriage. 72% still want something long term, but without the pressure of traditional timelines and expectations. So what does that tell us? It tells us that situationships aren't some dating anomaly. It's the new default, and in a lot of cases it's not just tolerated, but it's preferred. Because let's be honest, situationships offer all of the good stuff with none of the hard stuff. Most of the time. You get the flirting, the emotional closeness, the intimacy, all without the rest of it. You get the good parts without the difficult conversations, the labels, the having to go to your partner's cousin's friend's nephew's birthday party, the pressure to show up and be there when it's inconvenient. It's like getting the relationship perks on lay-by without any guarantee that you'll actually own something in the end. It's modern romance. It's non-committal, it's non-confrontational, and it's algorithm approved. But here's the kicker, situationships can hurt. Sometimes even more than actual breakups. Because when something doesn't have a clear beginning, it rarely gets a clear ending. There's no closure when there was never any clarity to begin with.
You were the worst, as sick as it sounds, I loved you first. That was only casual.
And 9 times out of 10, you're not even grieving the person, you are grieving the potential, the fantasy version of them that you built in your head. The chemistry, the inside jokes, the text threads that felt like a story unfolding, but with no third act. But the thing is, you never get far enough in to see the cracks. You never fought about the small stuff or had to live together and realize they suck to live with. You don't run into the incompatibilities that eventually wear a relationship down. Most of the time, you're just stuck with a highlight reel of what might have been. A perfect Pinterest board of imaginary milestones, which can be very intoxicating and very difficult to let go of. It's like getting dumped by a projection, and that kind of heartbreak can hit different. You see it all the time on TikTok, people saying they grieved their situationship more than their 3-year relationship. And I think this is why. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm pretty sure this is why. Because there's nothing actually to hold on to, so there's nothing solid to let go of. There's no clean ending. And also because people kind of feel a bit stupid for mourning a situationship because it was never a real relationship, so there's that element of it as well. So what is driving this? We're living in a culture that is chronically online but emotionally fluent. We've got a love language for everything, including like sending memes instead of expressing actual feelings. Everyone wants emotional connection but not the labels. They want the intimacy without the effort. The comfort of being chosen without all of the responsibility of having to choose someone back and show up in that way. It's like buying a car and then being shocked and annoyed that it needs fuel all the time to run. A lot of people are terrified of being alone but are also terrified of being seen. Vulnerability feels like too raw and exposed and irreversible for a lot of people. So they settle into the in-between, that liminal, almost relationship gray area where everything feels real but nothing is defined. Because if you try to define it, then you might ruin it, or worse, reveal a lack of interest from the other party. So instead, everything stays vague. And let's be honest with ourselves, more often than not, this just ends up with one person catching feelings and the other person not. Does it ever work? It's a bad idea. But situationships aren't the disease, they are the symptom. They're probably what happens when nothing around us feels stable enough to build anything on, just in general. Whether that's in interpersonal relationship dynamics, the way we interact with each other, which is mostly online now, or the economy. The economy is a mess, housing is unaffordable, job security is a joke, commitment to anything feels kind of vague and out of reach and not safe. So committing to a relationship can feel pretty overwhelming when you can't even commit to a lease. You can't commit to a city. We can't commit to a 5-year plan because we don't know if everything's going to go up in smoke by then. There's a once in 100-year crisis every other day. Like nothing is stable. I do think there is a deep cultural exhaustion that we have all experienced that probably got way worse after COVID, and dating has not escaped that. In fact, COVID probably made dating a million times worse because everyone got way more isolated. Our parents got to follow a roadmap that barely exists anymore. Marriage in your early 20s, a house by 25, kids by 27. Meanwhile, most of us are sitting here Googling how to best split rent in a share house or wondering if it's too soon to ask someone that you're not officially dating to split the Uber Eats delivery. And because the old systems don't work and no one's really built a new one, and again, we're in this era of growing pains, everyone's kind of stuck, floating in this in-between space where old structures feel outdated but nothing's come in to replace it. It's relationship purgatory. No labels, no clear rules, just sending memes, maybe the Spotify link, the occasional shared playlist, or a voice note if you're lucky. And situationships aren't necessarily like a failure of character. I think they're more a reflection of the chaotic society that we're all trying to navigate, because when nothing feels certain, ambiguity in your personal life can kind of feel like the safer option. So here's the question: are we evolving past outdated relationship models? The rigid timelines, the performative milestones that everyone just follows blindly, the pressure to find the one before our frontal lobe even finishes developing, and then suffer for the rest of our lives if we made the wrong choice? Not a great system, I gotta say. I don't know if this one's better, but that wasn't a great system. Or are we just completely out of practice with connection that isn't filtered, edited, or curated? Situationships are easy, they're low maintenance, no need for the big talks, no need to introduce them to your friends, your family, or your actual life. You can hang out, hook up, share memes, and leave. No hard feelings. Or at least that's what people like to tell themselves, because they don't require you to show up when it's inconvenient. They don't demand honesty. You can keep one foot out of the door and still get that dopamine hit of connection, and you can dip the second things get complicated or vulnerable. But they also don't require you to grow. You don't have to communicate to get through conflict. You don't have to confront your own maladaptive patterns, your own behaviors that might be toxic, and you don't have to name your fears. You don't have to build trust over time. You don't have to be vulnerable with someone. You never have to sit in the discomfort that relationships sometimes force you into. You don't have to worry about being misunderstood, or even scarier, trigger warning for some of us, being understood and being loved anyway. God forbid. And maybe that's the whole point. Maybe that's why so many people stay in the in-between space, because real commitment means risk, and it means work. It means choosing someone again and again and again, even when the novelty has worn off. And it means showing up when you'd rather shut down and call it a day and f off. So the question isn't really just, are we evolving? It's, are we ready for what that evolution asks of us? Because in my opinion, growth isn't just walking away from broken systems and hoping for the best. It's being brave enough and smart enough to build something better in their place, which I don't think we're doing with this situationship thing. That's my personal opinion. I think it has a place. I think it has a time. I don't think it's awesome that we've all really jumped on this one. I do think people are making the best of a situation where men and women are increasingly incompatible, where personal connection is an afterthought, all inside an economy and a society that consistently delivers chaos and instability, and in a world where most of our interactions happen through a screen and social skills are completely neglected. So personally, I don't think situationships are inherently bad. Obviously, not everything needs to follow a traditional relationship script, and some people really thrive in undefined dynamics. If it works for you, great. But I do think it's worth asking if we as a society are abandoning in-person connections and commitment in favor of those that we find through a screen, and whether or not that's healthy, because I don't think it is. Because real love, like the kind that grows and deepens over time, isn't always chill. It's not always convenient, and it definitely doesn't live in your DMs at 2 o'clock in the morning saying you up. Real commitment, real love requires showing up even when it's inconvenient, even when it's not curated or cute or easy. And if you're in this situation and you are dating in 2025 and you are thinking, what the f is going on? Maybe you don't like situationships. Situationships might be the relationship model of 2025, but they don't have to be yours. You're allowed to want clarity. You're allowed to want care and consistency. You're allowed to say, this isn't enough for me, even if it used to be. So with all that being said, have you been in a situationship? Are you in a situationship right now? Have you been ghosted? Who caught feelings first? Tell me everything. I am actually very nosy and I do want to know. Did it implode like the Titan submersible, or did it like fade into a quiet ghosting? I would love to know. Let me know in the comments. I'm collecting for research purposes and also for deeply nosy personal reasons. If you have watched this far into the video, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe if you wish. Share this with your friend who is currently in their third casual thing of 2025 and says it definitely isn't a situationship, but it is. And we know it is, and this is a safe place. With that being said, I will see you in the next one. Or not. I don't really want to commit to anything right now.